Oh, now this is strange. I'm in the stream with audio only. This is very, very bizarre. But if I hit start camera, let's see what happens. That's better. I didn't realize I turned it off. Hello, welcome to the Midday Show. This is Neil Long, and I'm actually flying by the seat of my pants today because I've got a guest. And I actually only knew I had a guest a couple of hours ago. So it's going to be a bit, for those of you waiting in the green room, it's going to be a bit of a bizarre one for me, but bear with me. But it's very lovely that you're here. We'll just do a couple of hellos, then we get our first guest on because we've got a busy show today. We're talking at 12:30 to a comedian colleague of mine called Dave Chawner, who's a very funny man, but also suffered from anorexia. And we wouldn't normally think of that so much. From a man suffering from, in the similar sort of way, I suppose, that you don't think that men can suffer from breast cancer, which they can. So anyway, that's coming up later, and that's going to be an interesting interview all about mental health, recovery, and comedy. Hello, Robert. How are you? But I can see our first guest waiting in the wings. Hello, Kelly Barker.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Have we got Paul and Michael as well, or are they after me?
Okay, you need to say the magic word, Shazam.
Shazam. Oh, here they are.
As if by magic. Hello, Paul. Hello, Michael. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Now, you're very welcome. Tell us who you are. Tell us about yourself. What brings you to the Midday Show today?
Okay, so my name is Kelly Barker, and I am the founder of Born Anxious Clothing, which promotes acceptance and awareness of autism and invisible disabilities.
Now, what's it called? Born
Anxious.
Born Anxious. Okay, let me pop that on the screen. Does it have a must have a website?
We do, but it's currently being rebuilt. But there's lots of links on there to Etsy, and we do provide a lot of content on there. It's Autism Acceptance Month this month, so we're sharing quite a lot of positive messages on there.
Good stuff, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Just give me the website domain, and then we can pop it on the screen.
Okay, so it's bornanxious.co.uk.
I could have guessed that, couldn't I?
And we're actually here today to talk about autism allotments, which is a project being run by Paul and Michael.
Okay, please tell us more about it, because I think with things like this, the more awareness and understanding that we have, and it keeps evolving every day, doesn't it? And being talked about a lot more in not too distant past, it wouldn't have been understood at all. Now there's a lot and more understanding, then people with these conditions can live closer to normal lives, whatever that might be. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that awareness of neurological conditions is more in the media than ever before. We have a really, really big influx of late diagnosed adults.
Very much so. We're hearing the term neurodiversity an awful lot, albeit it gets bandied around a bit and no one's exactly sure what it means, but perhaps you'll shed some light on that for us as well. Late diagnosis, as you say, and of course the whole massive conversation about mental health at the moment, which is partly why we do what we do. So I'll throw it over to you, your forum. Please tell us all about it, Kelly.
Okay, so
I love the background. Are you in a shed?
I'm in a cabin. It's not a shed, but yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Cabin.
I meant cabin.
I want to hand over to Paul and Michael, I think, because Autism Allotments is very much their brainchild. It's something that I am one of their leads on for inclusion. And it's just such a wonderful project, and we really want them to be all over the UK. So I'm going to hand over to them and let you explain about Autism Allotments.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Paul and Michael, nice to meet you.
Hi, you okay?
Yeah, good, thanks, guys. Tell us all about Autism Allotments.
Yeah, so we set Autism Allotments up. We had an idea in December last year. My dad had an allotment and we were still paying the rent for it, and we wanted to do something useful with it. So then we've got two autistic boys ourselves, Levi and Lucas, who are soon going to be 18. And we kind of find the older they get, the less there is for them. So we thought we'd set up the Autism Allotments, which is going to be a lot more than just like growing vegetables. We're going to have like inclusive play equipment on there, a log cabin on there for support groups for parents and carers, and we can do workshops and training. And it's gone from one plot to now 5 because the demand is that massive. So we've had lots of different schools saying, can we bring classes of the children from special needs schools, from autistic schools? And it's just gone like really crazy. Like Kelly says, there's a whole team behind it now of different people that are specialists.
When you say as they get older, there's less for them.
Yeah.
This is across the board, I suppose.
I think. Hi, good morning. I think it's national.
Are you Paul or are you Michael?
Have a guess.
One of the two.
Who do you think
Paul.
I am?
Paul.
Yes, I am Paul. Good morning. Are you Kelly?
Well, I'm obviously not taking great care of myself if I am.
Anyway, back to being professional. Anyway, so what we found across the board, and with all our networks and contacts across the whole of the UK, as children with disabilities and complex needs transfer over to adult services, the support and the advice and the services are lesser and lesser. And because we're all about breaking down barriers, taboos and boundaries that sadly still exist for those with disabilities and health needs, whether they be visible, we're all about promoting that acceptance. If it's not acceptable, if it's not accessible, it's not acceptable. And we are about showing the world it's okay to be who you are, to be proud of who you are, and we all achieve things at different levels in our lives.
Yeah, and I think just disabilities in general, not just autism and neurodiversity, that it's just, it can be so restrictive. And also, we found over the years, if we take the boys to different places, if they make different noises or sounds or flapping their hands and doing autistic behaviours, there can be a lot of tuts and comments and people thinking that it's bad behaviour, that they're being naughty, that they're out of control. And a lot of that's because back in the day, obviously, children like Levi and Lucas and Oscar were put into institutions and they were hidden away. So some of the older generation have not really seen people like this.
Well, it's how we dealt with mental health in general, wasn't it? We just put them away.
Yeah.
That's where we get our word bedlam from. That was an old sanitarium, and I can't imagine what those places were like. But now, God, you know, we have more understanding. But you know, put it away and be a bit embarrassed about it, because that's not what normal society does. It's not a good strategy. We're finally learning. I mean, you know, and about bloody time too.
I think there's a lot of mental. Sorry, go guys.
Every family in the UK is diverse, unique, and different. And the more we talk about it, and the more we are all out there being proud of our children, young people, and adults, the more people learn.
Well, you're right. And I also think, given the right conditions, most people can learn most things. Given the right conditions. I know two people off the top of my head. I know Dyslexic Millionaire, right? Yeah. So I also know, you talk about flapping, it made me think, there's a very funny autistic, and he talks about being autistic on stage, comedian called Stephen Catling, and he has a show called Behavioural Problems, and he dresses up as a bee and pours honey on his head. It's very visual and very bizarre, but it's getting a lot of laughs in comedy clubs around the country. But it draws, he talks openly about being autistic and what it's like and how autistic people see the world. But what some would call a disability in other parts of these people, sometimes, well, it's like the film Rain Man, where he memorized the cards, and that might be Hollywood, but or the autistic person that was flying in a helicopter and drew the whole Houses of Parliament and everything in the most intricate detail from memory after flying past it in a helicopter. Now that's genius. So we've got to be a bit careful how we use the word disability. If someone is not like the majority of people, that does not necessarily, the only disability is being in the minority where the world isn't set up to cater for people with those kind of needs. Yes, that's what I'm saying. I think.
Yeah, and I think that's why we want to create these safe spaces, because it's about giving people opportunity to thrive in an environment that meets their needs. And I think everyone has such a massive everyone has sensory needs, whether you're neurodivergent or not. We all have.
Let's talk about that a bit, because this is really interesting. So I use the word normal. I don't mean that in any negative way, but all right, me, just a regular guy, I wouldn't call myself neurodivergent, though many would call me a bit crazy. But what sensory needs would the average person need? The average
Well, I
person
think
without.
everybody has preferred ways of communication and how they
Mm.
receive messages from the world. Some of us
Yeah.
prefer to have things that are more tactile. Some of us,
Kinesthetic, yeah,
you know, we all regulate in different ways. And I
we
think
do.
that the way that neurodivergent people are received in the community, maybe it's because they don't react in a way that's inside someone's set idea of how that looks like.
Right. And in that case, they're going to be perceived as wrong, and there the problems begin.
Absolutely. So what we're saying about inclusion is scrap the boxes. Don't have a preset idea. The best way of being accessible and inclusive is don't have a set idea of what somebody should present as. Let everybody have, you know, because that way, regardless of disability, you're allowing somebody to be completely who they are and be accepted for that.
And that is possibly the greatest gift of all for all of us, neurodivergent or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think,
but perhaps especially so for our neurodivergent friends.
yes.
And what is an ideal environment for people with these kind of conditions?
Well, I think it's a flexible environment. And I think ultimately it has to be safe. Paul and Michael have worked very, very hard with local council to make sure that the plots are secure. And I think that was the most important, you know, for me. My son's an eloper. He will seek an exit wherever we are, and he will run away from safety towards that exit, not knowing what he's going to meet, because that's a desire inside him to do that.
Right.
So I think the parameters of what we're doing at the autism allotment is, if you make something safe, then you don't dictate what someone does in that safe space. And I think it's really important to have the play equipment there and carry on fundraising for that, because just the transition of leaving home to go into the car to arrive at the allotment is actually really big for some children with disabilities. And they may not do a lot at the allotment, but the freedom of being there and having that choice is what Paul and Michael are trying to achieve there in that space. So you may have some children that do tap into plants and growing things. You may have some children that just seek that sensory feedback from being outside. You know, we take for granted that all children have a garden. They may not. So we really hope that there are mental health benefits to it as well. I think the community element.
There can't not be.
Yeah, absolutely.
There can't not be.
And this is why the idea is growing. So the fundraiser we have, the crowdfunder, there's numerous ways that people can support that. You can plant a tree in somebody's memory, or you know, you can sponsor a raised sensory bed, and they're all going to be representative of the different senses. We have a really big fundraising evening in April to celebrate the boys' 18th and Paul's birthday. So there's lots of ways. We've just held a really, really big raffle. So many amazing businesses took part in it. But I think the point is, a community allotment is going to be crowdfunded really by the community. And we really hope to be able to
it's a question of getting the community behind it. And I think if you can show the community that it's going to have benefits beyond just a nice thing to do or just to be inclusive, I say that's massive. Sorry, that came out a bit wrong.
City gardens are also an idea. Smaller areas in cities where people can go for some regulation. You know, someone that works in the city might actually really enjoy.
We all need that, though. I mean, you're absolutely right, and I'm just expanding on the idea, Kelly. We all need that. We're all sat inside way too much. We all should be outside for at least some time every day to get the natural light. We weren't born to sit in front of computers, albeit having fascinating conversations like this, but not all day long. Not all day long.
No, absolutely. So we really do need everyone behind it. I think that the progress the lads have made from the original idea to now is absolutely amazing. If you go onto Instagram and look at autism allotments, you can follow the journey and how it's been building. It's absolutely fantastic. in such a short time, but we do just need to keep that going because we need to get to the point where we can open.
I've got a bit of an idea for you. Maybe raise some funds. I'll throw this idea out there, and no hard feelings if you don't like the idea. But I do from time to time parties online because I'm a DJ.
Oh, okay.
And all the way through lockdown, when we weren't allowed to go anywhere, I was broadcasting legally online and doing parties, and we did some fundraisers. So if you've got a mailing list and can get the troops on advertising it, we could get everyone to tune in at one particular time. I could play a killer DJ set, which, trust me, I'm damn good at, and we could fundraise.
Amazing. Like. Yeah, let's do it. It's a deal.
You fancy that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you like that, boys?
We'd love you for that. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, after the show's over, which finishes at 1, we'll have a little chat on Facebook, swap numbers and all that sort of things.
Amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
And their listeners is how to win a woman over and get her phone number. You're welcome. Anyway.
I love it.
Every time. So it's basically, as I was saying, getting it accepted by the community, show it's got some benefit for them, isn't it? But it will do, because it rather than it presenting a problem of what do we do with people with these needs, well, let's do something for these people with these needs. It seems I love the way it's grown so fast as well. Clearly the demand is there, right?
I think we've been really shocked because it started, obviously, we've cleared 20 tons of fly tipping from this site, as well as, so we're also making it better for the environment. We've got a plot in the middle which the council condemned, which we've planted like hundreds of trees and wildflower seeds have been sown in there. So we're doing for biodiversity as well. But the community that's got behind this, that's what's drove it so forward, because our volunteers that come, we have community payback.
Where is it? I'm sorry, this particular one?
So it's in Barnsley.
Barnsley in South Yorkshire.
The first site, yeah.
I could have guessed that from your accent, actually, now I think about it, yeah.
But we are, it's just grown so fast.
It's a beautiful place. It's Barnsley.
All of Yorkshire is beautiful.
Absolutely. Michael's born and bred in Yorkshire.
But you'll find, so Paul's been approaching a lot of the big businesses and stuff, and it's like banging your head against a brick wall. But you ask normal people and everyday people around this area, which is an old like mining area, and they will just give and give and give. Even if it's just like £1, it all adds up. That's what we always say. If everybody on the social media just donated £1, we'd have like £10,000. And it's like it has. We really started it in about February, didn't we?
I've given up contacting all the philanthropists.
The big dogs. Yeah.
We know, because
do you know, it's
we're getting nowhere with them, and I think
you'd think it would be the easiest thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But what frustrates me is
it's not. There's so much red tape. Similar story again over lockdown.
What frustrates me?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go on. After you.
Oh, sorry. So I thought you said something. Oh, hello. They've disappeared. See, I have that effect on people.
They're back.
They're back. Over lockdown, we came up with an idea, me and this entrepreneurial chap, that we would do fundraisers for charities that were desperate for money. We'd take 10% each, me and the guy that got me the gig, and it would be no risk to them. They couldn't lose. The only thing they could lose is a couple of hours of their time by clicking on a link. Literally, all the risk and the time was ours, and 80% was theirs, free money. And it's no, we can't do that. Can't do that. And I'm like, why? It's free. There's no risk, and it's completely legal, and for that matter, environmentally friendly. And you can't do it because. So I get it. There's so much red tape.
There is, and I think there's a lot of big organisations that really benefit from content creators, and my label, the work that Paul and Michael do, we're banging the drum, and now we're saying we're going back to basics here with these allotments. We're going back to teaching children about how to grow their own food, getting outside, getting muddy, putting the device down.
I know. And you say, are there mental health benefits? Well, those three are mental health benefits for a start. Plus
Yeah.
what the lads mentioned, biodiversity, that's an indirect mental health benefit, because if we've got no clean environment or diverse environment, there won't be anyone to have mental health in it. So it's indirectly.
It would be fantastic to see this grow, I think, across the UK. It's very hard where I live. I live in Kent, and allotments are like gold dust. And there's huge waiting lists for them. And they are hoping that autism allotments can become a charity. Again, there's a lot of red tape. It's very hard to become a charity.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
They make it very hard, and I can see why, because I think when people see charity, they're more willing to become involved. So I do see why, but we are hoping to grow this. I think that it benefits everybody. There are a lot of families, going back to the autism awareness side of it and the acceptance side of it, there are a lot of families that cannot access the community, especially in the holidays and things like that. And I think it would just be really lovely to have a community space that's free, that you can go to and know that there are other like-minded people in that space. And I think once the allotments are up and running and people are visiting and they're feeling part of the community, because parents and
connection to something or something bigger than yourself, something benign.
I think people will wonder what they did without it. I think once it's there, people will wonder what they did without it.
Because any kind of mental health condition or any kind of condition, it can, by its very nature, or I've said this so many times on the show, it's isolating and you feel that you're the only one. And then when you're in a group of like-minded peers and people, and I've got groups like that, not because of something like this, but for other reasons where I need that kind of support. And when you see it's just peers, people just like you, with the same hopes, the same fears, the same desires, the same everything, you think, God, they're just like me. And that peer and community support is invaluable in whatever niche, in whatever area, really.
Well, I think parenting children with complex disabilities will always be lonely because your journey is so unique to you. So you can find as many other families as you like, but no other family is going to have what you have. But to have a community space where you can go and feel part of something, I think it's what's needed in communities. I think everyone's become too private, too isolated, too looking after what they've got going on. And there are people that really survive on those interactions. And I think that's what the autism allotments bring. They bring that sense of community where, you can grow stuff together and just be together. They're going to have cabins there, where you can make hot drinks and all of that kind of stuff that doesn't really cost money.
No.
And it
doesn't cost money, but very valuable. Very valuable.
The cabins cost money, so we do need the funds. but the time doesn't. And I think, I know Paul and Michael have worked really, really hard at the allotments so far, but I have seen it with my own eyes. They're really enjoying it.
What do you enjoy about it, lads? What's the best benefit for you? What do you get out of this?
So I've been very honest with my emotions with this, because I think it's a bit like an emotional roller coaster. We have the ups and downs when you're shoveling so much soil and you're getting nowhere, you're in the rain, you're soaked to the bone. It's all about the end goal with me. As soon as I know we get to the end goal where the first plot is done, I know
you're a visual person, aren't you? So when Paul sees the fencing going up or the raised beds going up,
because when I see a mess, that's all I can see. Yeah. But I like to see improvement all the time.
Mate, you can come around my house anytime.
So we're
hello, we got another visitor. Hello, who are you?
Hello, I'm the volunteer lead at the allotment. So along with Paul, Michael and my partner Rob, we're the ones doing the digging.
What's your name?
Izzy.
Izzy, lovely to meet you. You're live on the Midday Show. Good to meet you, Izzy.
So it's because Izzy has been like a big part of it from day one when we were clearing all the fly tipping, and we've been around the village today putting posters up for our big volunteering day.
Yeah, it must be a fantastic sense of achievement as well. So what do you get out of it, Michael?
Out the allotment, I've loved seeing it like transform into this. So I've seen it from a regular allotment, like when the one plot was my dad's, to grow to the 5 plots, and to know that we're going to have the 2 different sides, one for children like Levi, Lucas, our boys, who are more sensory based and the non-verbal, and they need like support 24/7 because they've got epilepsy as well. And then we're going to do the other side for like adults, where they can learn work skills and they can grow their vegetables, sell their vegetables. It'll help with the cost of living crisis. So it has been hard work. Like me, Paul and Izzy was down there last week filling the raised beds, and it's been backbreaking, hasn't it?
I'm surprised we've
What
not
about
gone
you,
through
Izzy?
a
Izzy, can
divorce.
you? Sorry, Paul.
I'm surprised we've not gone through a divorce. And I was quite tempted last weekend, as I was trying to fill one of the raised beds, to bury Michael in it.
Turn it into a graveyard.
I don't think that's strictly legal.
Then we get loads of press coverage, won't we?
Well, you would, and probably a Netflix series, but is the cost worth it?
Somebody else said that to us last week.
Well,
Izzy, move a little closer to the camera if you would. It's lovely to have you on the show. Hello. What do you get out of this? What's the mental and emotional benefits for you?
It's just been amazing, from just going out and having exercise and being outdoors. For, I suppose, a selfish reason for being a volunteer is the sense that it is so beneficial. Like, you're outdoors all day. Okay, it's killing and it's not really fun work all the time, but you do feel so much better for just being out and about. And I think that's one thing as well, that I think people with volunteers that maybe say they don't necessarily have a connection to the cause, or they just don't necessarily know how they can help. Maybe they feel scared because they don't know too much about autism or neurodiversity, that they can actually just come and help out. You don't need to know everything about it. Just come and pick a shovel up, and it is fun. We do have a laugh.
Yeah.
We complain, but we do have a laugh.
I would question it, you said it was selfish. I would call it self-care. There's a world of difference. I think all true benefits are mutual. It benefits you, and in you benefiting, you benefit other people. Benefit attracts benefit. It's like that. You know, if I feel good from doing this virtual fundraiser, we all win, don't we? You know, it's a win-win.
Izzy's always said from day one, because we're always putting posts on the social media from our volunteers, treat it as a free workout. They could cancel the gym membership and just work at the allotment, because it is like physically demanding, isn't it?
Literally, I tell you, I'm getting biceps and triceps. I was looking at myself in the mirror the other day. It's the first time I've had a bit of muscle.
I think it's really good as well, what Paul and Michael was saying about autistic children become autistic adults. And I think that the employment rates for autistic adults are so low that actually to have something that could possibly develop into some kind of organic, fruit and vegetable, local, small enterprise or business for autistic people is fantastic, because we have to look within our own community, I think, to create those opportunities. You could have it as big or as small as you like. You could, if you're clever, do something online, create adverts, or just be part of growing it. And I think if you did that as a project, it wouldn't matter what your skill set was, because you could be part of growing it, or you could be more in the business side of it.
Well,
so
I think a great organisation has elements of all of it, doesn't it? It's rare, possible, but rare to find all those skills within one person. But to have people with complementary skills, and together the whole is, greater than the sum of its parts, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because it's about, I think, achievable targets. We don't always meet all of our targets all of the time, but actually, if we base them on what our own skills are, there's always targets that you can meet and celebrate. And that's how people grow in their confidence, isn't it? And keep well. So you're not going to...
I like that. I've been coming up against this, not against this, I'm coming across this concept in stuff that I've been learning recently, and it's encapsulated in the phrase "stay in your lane." And what I understand that to mean is focus on your strength, your skill sets, and develop those, so you develop your confidence in that. No one person on the planet is good at everything. There's some things I'm really good at, and some things I'm not, and that's okay. But there's no point in me feeling less than confident about the things I'm not good at. I might as well focus on my strengths and capitalize on what I am good at and build my confidence. So that's a circular logic. It makes complete sense to me. Absolutely.
Yeah, and also I think that there's a bit of a concentration on, you know, not feeling okay to celebrate what we are good at. I think if you have something that you are good at, you should be able to celebrate that, because it's
Quite right.
It's a
I think they call
unique,
that tooting your own horn in the game.
yeah, and you know what? Especially for autistic people, we do need to be celebrating what we're good at, because we don't sometimes meet all of our targets. And I think if you've got a unique ability to identify what you are good at and celebrate that, that's a really good thing. And I think that kind of confidence does grow in places like the allotment, because you can start wherever you're at. If you know lots about plants, great. If you don't, that's fine. That's the place where you can learn about it. But also social skills, just being around people, isn't it? If you're around positive input, then it's more likely that you're going to have positive output.
Because they say a lot about people with these kind of conditions, and in my observation too, and I don't mean this in any way offensively, and please, if I'm being offensive, please tell me, but they seem to be socially awkward. Or awkward in social situations. So if anything that could develop that confidence and be more,
Yes.
confident, I suppose it just exposure to it and an opportunity to develop it, of course, is a good thing, right?
Yeah. It's like when we were told, when Levi and Lucas were young, and we really struggled taking them out and about, because they would scream and get upset in different environments, and they'd be overloaded, and they'd have proper meltdowns, which is different to like a normal child's paddy, which we always try and describe. They'll just have a meltdown. It'll become too much for them. Even like the refrigerator noise from in the supermarkets can just trigger them off. So we like isolated ourselves the first few years, because we were sick of people staring, tutting, and making out they were being naughty and passing comments. And then something just clicked, and we took him. We booked his first holiday, and it was to the Caribbean. We went to the GPs, and he says, "Oh, that's not fair on the other passengers. If they're screaming on the plane and whatever, I'll give them some diazepam to knock them out on the plane, and this, that, and the other." And we says, "He gave us this prescription. We didn't use it. But if we had not took the boys on holiday from being young and got them used to them situations, they now go to like Disney World most years, and they love it. They love roller coasters. They're actually the best behaved children on the airplane." So if you don't do these things, you end up isolating not just the child or the person with autism, but you isolate all the family as well. And it's about getting them out there.
And that's a shame, just because of people's, frankly, judgments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, you've made some really good points. It all makes complete sense. I'm going to move on now, because we have another guest coming up. But it's been lovely to have you on, Paul and Michael. Izzy, lovely to meet you, and Kelly. Thank you so much for being on the Midday Show. Keep us updated. I know Russ, my partner in crime here, will be very keen to have you come back and give us updates in the future. So whatever process you went through, you weren't booked as my guest, but whatever process you went through, keep in touch with them and come back on sometime, please. That's Definitely. The first thing. Second thing, hit me up on Facebook, or I'll look for you. It's Kelly Barker. I'll find you on Facebook. You on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on all the socials as Born Anxious as well. So you can find us in 2 places. And also the links to the autism allotments are on there. But it does also have its own Facebook page. So we really would like everyone to pop over, give us a like, share our stuff, and get involved.
Do you hear that, everyone tuned in? Go and give these people some social media love, because they deserve it. And I'll be in touch later on about the fundraiser, and we talk about it. And third thing, I'm very, very sorry for calling your cabin a shed.
Yeah, come on.
I know. It's very nice cabin. Only thing is, because I've got a man cave and it is a shed, so it's easy for me to get confused.
It's not actually. It's quite cold in here, quite dark, and there's a running machine I never go on that keeps looking at me. Oh,
you see, my shed's not big enough to have a running machine. That's my excuse.
One's broken.
Yeah. I won't recommend any mechanics. Great talking to you all. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's been lovely to have you. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye. There you go. That was fantastic bunch of people. I absolutely love that. Now I can see my next guest is waiting in the wings, but he seems to have. There he is, Dave Chawner. How you doing?
Hello, mate. How's life?
Very, very good, thank you. Now let me just introduce the backstory here. I do stand-up comedy with mixed results. You do stand-up comedy. I think you've been doing it longer. Well, I've done it 2 times round, but I think you've done it longer than I
Still
have.
with mixed results.
I tell you what, the massive names in the business. I think Robin Williams probably had mixed results. That's all part of the game. But I saw you at the Hampton Hub on a bill put together by Graham and Elaine Blackmore, who we've had on the show, from Whole Lot of Comedy, two of my favourite people in the comedy world. You were on the bill. Jeff Innocent was headlining that night, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Who is,
yeah.
Everyone loves Jeff Innocent. I think he's just wonderful. But I thought you were really good as well. I really liked your stuff.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Yes. And true. I thought you were very, very funny. But the reason why I wanted you on this show is because you alluded to mental health in your set. And the thing with comedians, they're such good storytellers. I never know if they're telling the truth or not. Is it comedy? Is it therapy? Is it just a brilliant story for comic effect? And sometimes I don't know. But I looked you up and it's all absolutely true. And I'd love you to share your journey with us, if you would, including what got you into comedy. And then, of course, where people can find and see you. But you've written a book. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's very kind. I mean, I suppose that I got into comedy because I loved it. And to be honest, I think when I was at university, that was where I got into comedy. We went to this comedy club. It was once every 2 weeks. And it was £3, and I loved it. And we got to see people like Russell Howard. We got to see people like John Robbins. We got to see Michael McIntyre pop down before he was big. But
wow.
the thing that I loved about it was 2 things. Was one that like comedians were unapologetically themselves. You know what I mean? Like comedians are freaks. Like, and I loved that. I loved that you knew how Alan Carr would feel about football before he tells you. I love that you knew how Jason Manford or Peter Kay might feel about tapas before they'd even sort of said anything.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing. But also I thought it was a good laugh, a good giggle and a good break. And I didn't realize at the time I was going through a lot of mental health stuff. And it was a lovely little booze-free release, which was really good. And so I started doing it myself. And I always said that I wanted to do comedy about mental health because I honestly think that a comedy club is the epitome of good mental health. You're getting together with other people, big tick for mental health. You're getting out of the house, big tick for mental health. You're talking about really difficult topics, whether that's being too poor, whether that's being single, whether that's being divorced, whether that's not knowing what you want to do with your life, not fitting in, etc. And these are all brilliant things for mental health. And I thought, look, if I
agree. And you did it very tastefully, very, very tastefully too, really tastefully. And it drew me in. I wanted to listen. It kind of touched a heartstring. I'm like, oh, I really want to listen to this. Then I'm laughing because it's funny. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's quite heartfelt. Then I'm laughing again. It's great. And I think there was a certain boost for mental health, being able to laugh at things you're not supposed to laugh at. I mean, you're looking at the man here that sings parody songs about doing unspeakable things with Hoovers. So I'm known as Hoovers.
In the house.
Pardon?
Cleaning the house, that's the unspeakable thing to do with the Hoover, I think.
It's not that. It's not that. I'll leave that to your imagination and possibly we'll discuss it on a late night show. But did you find so comedy helped you with your mental health challenges, did it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was quite actively anorexic when I was at university. And I think...
Now, people don't think, sorry to jump in, people don't think, you wouldn't normally associate anorexia with men, would you? Any more than you'd associate breast cancer with men. So fair play for raising awareness of this. What are the statistics like? Do you know?
It's an interesting thing. So eating disorders itself is a really interesting field because about 10 to 25% of anorexics, they reckon, can be blokes. So up to 1 in 4 people with anorexia can be blokes. The history of anorexia itself is really interesting. So the first ever clinical case of anorexia was in the 1600s, and that was actually a bloke. So it kind of turns this all on its head, and people like Lord Byron was very actively anorexic, that we know, and people like Mary, Queen of Scots, as well, had anorexia. It's really, like, the history is really, really fascinating. But I also kind of try and contextualize that as well, that like only 10% of people that have eating disorders have anorexia. About 40% have bulimia, and the difference there is generally that anorexia is kind of symptomized by like restriction, you're not eating, whereas bulimia is eating a lot in a short space of time and then getting rid of it. But 50% of eating disorders are one that most people have never even heard of, which is called EDNOS, which stands for eating disorders not otherwise specified. And that's things like binge eating disorder. That's things like overeating, compulsive overeating. There's loads of different types. And that is a 50-50 split of men and women. But I think one of the things that blokes don't do very well is, and me included in this, is realizing that they have a problem.
What did it take for you to realize that you had a problem?
I think in a very cliche way, I knew that I got a problem for a while, but I was waiting for an excuse to get help. I was waiting for that, you know, that Hollywood moment that they always have in the movies of like being down and out. And I'll never forget, years after that, I once at a Christmas party had one too many Ribenas and fell over. And I kind of pulled back my finger, and I'll never forget, the next morning it was all blue, like blown up. And I'll never forget my housemate going, mate, I'll get that checked out. And it really made me realize that when we're talking about physical health, a lot of the time, if you find a lump, you might go, yeah, just get it checked out. There's very little, I've never heard anyone say that about mental health. Yeah, just get it. It could be nothing. Just go get it checked out. And mental health.
That is so true. That is so true. I'm so glad you said that. Because if we could catch things in the early stage, like anything, I think so many things, maybe even the really serious things, could be nipped in the bud, couldn't they?
100%. And I was waiting.
Food for thought, isn't it?
I was waiting for something big to happen to give me that excuse.
Sorry, I did not make a deliberate pun there. Sorry, that I've just realised what I said.
Well, what did you say?
I said that's food for thought, and I realised what I said. Sorry,
there's so many of these that you realise.
I promise you, I did not do that on purpose. Sorry.
What always makes me laugh, and
I'm glad you're a comedian.
You'll know this, Neil, but whenever you do TV interviews and stuff, generally the gold standard, whenever they put a little lapel mic on, is they'll always say what you have for breakfast. And it's made me laugh so many times that you'll be there talking about anorexia, and they'll go like, what did you have for breakfast? You're like, oh, I haven't had breakfast. They're like,
yeah, not very much, yes.
You know what I mean? It makes people very uncomfortable. But there's so many puns around food, because I think food is such a ubiquitous thing. Like any culture, any society, anywhere in the world, a lot of our socialization comes from being around food and celebrating food. I mean, look at Ramadan only yesterday. It's a whole feast about food.
Absolutely. And in European cultures, hugely.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful thing. So you realized you had a problem, and then what was your first steps to do something about said problem?
So I think, to be honest, the kind of truth of the matter is it's kind of a grey area, because for a long time I realised I got a problem, and I went to the doctors and I played the services, so I knew what I could do. I knew the system, and I knew how to stay out of it about getting inpatiented. And so I played that system quite a bit, and I went to the doctors and I said that I want help with the depression, not the anorexia. And I refused treatment 4 times, and I said, I know my legal rights and blah, 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 and all of this stuff. But it was actually the nearest I ever got to like a light bulb moment was because I knew that anorexia had the highest fatality rate of any mental illness, and that it kills one person every 62 minutes, dies as a direct result from eating disorders.
Good God, I didn't know that.
So it's about once every hour someone dies as a direct result of eating disorder. So it is a huge sort of issue. And anorexia itself, it has that highest fatality rate. And anyway, so I knew it was a suicide attempt, and I'd started writing the letters for after I'd gone and started making the videos and all of that stuff. But I never forget something that was really beautiful, because it was so down to earth, was I spoke to a nurse who was really understandably like well annoyed because I kept on refusing treatment. And she said, look, bottom line, you wouldn't expect your laptop to work if you don't charge it. Why are you expecting your brain to release feel-good chemicals if you ain't feeding it? And I thought that spoke to me. And I think this is another thing about mental health. A lot of the time it can be very long medical Latin words, but actually that spoke to me in a way that I was like, you know what, she's got a point, and that is fair enough. So I faced this dilemma of I continue with what I was doing and ultimately would push people away. And, you know, the horrible fact is by the time that the journey had been complete, a lot of people would probably be relieved because I was a nightmare to be around, or I do something about it. And genuinely, the idea of recovering and living was more terrifying than it taking its sort of natural progression. So I was very lucky, and then I had 2.5 years of therapy at the Maudsley Hospital, and I kind of feel very guilty about that. And I think a lot of the stuff that I do now is to sort of pay it forward, because I know I had a very good experience. Not everyone else is as lucky.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and it's a lovely thing to be paying it forward as well. And the whole healing process was what, 2.5 years or so?
2.5 years, and it was great. Like, honestly, therapy's amazing. And like, what was weird is I was writing this show about the anorexia at the same time as going through therapy. And as I did, I realized that like comedy and therapy are like pretty much the sort of same thing.
But yeah, I was thinking that at the start of the interview, very much actually. A lot of well, there's the joke going around that all comedians are crazy or broken or skint or depressed. I mean, that's a very old saw, that one. But I do notice an awful lot more people bringing up their challenges on the stage. There's an awful lot of that now, and people are kind of, and I think, oh, this is part of your healing process. This is at the very least cathartic or something, and good for you. And good for you, and it raises awareness too, which is wonderful. Do you have a website, by the way? Because I'm going to pop it on the screen so people can find you.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, my personal website is Dave Chawner, spelled the same way as my name, .co.uk. And if anyone is interested, because I started sort of writing this show when I was going through therapy, I've now created a comedy course specifically aimed at people with mental health problems to teach stand-up comedy as a method of recovery. And that's called comedyforcoping.com. And that's been on the sort of, we got commissioned by the NHS and just won a little grant from the British Academy to hire a couple of researchers from King's College London, University of Kent, University of Bristol and University of Manchester in order to do some proper, what they call qualitative analysis. And also,
isn't it interesting that when you or when anyone's going through something really difficult, they never dream, let's take your case, that you'd be teaming up with top universities and teaching other people how to do it. I mean, talk about the wonderful things that can happen, not just with this, but with anything, when you turn so-called the healing corner, pay it forward, and then boom, it's a legacy, and
I think life's like that in so many different ways. Like, I always find it really interesting whenever you talk about, like, for example, say something like eating disorders or whatever, who comes up to you after a gig. And I think a lot of the time people are waiting for an excuse to talk about this stuff. And it's always like really interesting about the people that sort of
for all you know, you could have saved someone's life.
Yeah, I mean, well,
for all you know, you could do it. Could just be that one thing that spoke to them, and like the nurse in simple terms spoke to you, rather than complicated scientific jargon. Something laid back, something informal, something fun, engaging, and funny, like a comedy club, would probably speak to people much louder than what's the word I want? Academic men in white coats could ever do.
That's my fundamental point, because I think when people are laughing, they have to be listening, and when they're listening, they can learn, and you can use that. And this is why I think comedy is a brilliant bastion for talking about, like, sort of LGBTQIA plus rights. You know, you look at years ago, people were very openly talking about being gay and camp, people talking about being polyamorous, female comedians were like, you know, going, look at French and Saunders, they were well ahead of the curve. That, you know, at the time you would never get a female on the FTSE 100 board of you know, women, but FTSE 100 board of CEOs, yet there they were, front and center with Aid Edmondson and stuff. So I think comedy is great because it doesn't try and make you fit in. It necessarily pushes you to stand out and celebrate that difference. And I think as soon as a lot of people see that and get that,
yeah, you're right. And there's some wonderful LGBTQ comedians that I could name, and that's something I like about that community as well. And you said it about comedians, it's that unashamedly this is who we are. And that's it. I did a great charity gig. It raises money for Mind, and there was a big LGBTQ contingent there. And bold as brass, they're on microphones. We're here, we're queer, and we're gonna drink beer. And it's like it or lump it. And it was such a great environment to be in. And I'm not LGBTQ, but it was such fun to hang around with them. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
And also, I've noticed a really interesting thing with a lot of predominantly gay acts at the moment of kind of, again, ahead of the curve of not camp, actually sort of not, you know what I mean? Like years ago, it used to be like, you used to be really camp and effeminate, and then it became quite, and now just there's, I mean, great people like Dan Tin and like Larry Dean, like so many others that are actually just kind
Stephen
of like,
Bailey.
Stephen Bailey's still that camp thing though, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? But I just kind of think comedy is always at the forefront of, I kind of feel like where society's going. And I do think like as this idea of like coming out in a couple of years' time is going to be seen as not offensive, but like, I don't know why you need to do that because no one's ever come out straight, you know, etc. So, but I think that really speaks to that idea of why I think mental health is, I think comedy and mental health are the perfect bed partners. I really do.
Oh, I was going through, I've always been open about it on the show, a bit of a mental health dip about 4 years ago. And Graham and I from Whole Lot of Comedy just got in touch with me out of the blue and asked me to be on their podcast. They said, can I do 10 minutes at one of their gigs? And I'm like, well, I've done comedy before. They knew that. But I'm like, oh, am I going to be funny? All those self-doubt voices. But it went well. And it did hit. And going to their open mic nights, because they're so generous with stage time. We used to go to a little pub called The Castle in Surbiton. Did you ever play there?
I don't think so.
No, I used to DJ there back in the 90s, and it was packed. And now it's gone through so many iterations. By this time, it was being run down. Really, it was going to be sold. But every Sunday, like clockwork, I would be in that comedy room trying out new stuff, failing dismally. You know, nurturing, honing, practicing, meeting other comedians who 99.9% are great people to hang out with. Yeah. What a laugh.
What's your favorite thing about doing it?
The buzz. I just come off stage when it's gone well and people are really laughing. I think, God, I did that. And it's the kind of being high on my own brain chemistry, if you like. Yeah. It's an absolutely addictive high, or going into flow state when you're on the stage, which is, if you go into flow state for any reason, that just feels like ecstasy, which is fantastic. But yeah, I love it. And I like the reactions of people. I like people coming up to me and saying, oh, that was really funny. But I don't kind of need rose petals strewn in front of me, but I enjoy positive feedback. Who doesn't, you know? How about you? Let me return the question to you. What's your best bit?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's why I'm always kind of interested, because I think it's different things at different times. And I think sometimes you can just go through the motions and don't realize. I love that idea. I've never heard it called the flow state before. I think that idea, yeah, is great. I think one of my favorite things, this is such a ridiculous thing, but I am a very sort of socially anxious person, and I love when I have enough confidence in a room and a performance that I can just be quiet on stage and I remember watching this, and I always used to think, wow, you always knew how good a comedian was by not only how long he could let the room be quiet, but also if they could take like a drink. I never forget seeing Rufus Hound years ago, and he got on stage. He hadn't even told a joke, and he just started taking off his jacket. He made himself at home. And it's just that being comfortable around other people. And I think it takes a lot for me to be comfortable around other people. And
it's like holding your nerve. It's holding the nerve, isn't it? Long enough to be. But once you reach that comfortable state, or even that flow state, that then it's just a magic. It feels like you've got them in the palm of your hand, and it feels like it's a lovely powerful, positive, powerful feeling. I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
And again, this is why I think for people that are suffering from mental health problems, it's sustainable. I always say to people generally, don't, or try at least not to drink, at the very least before you go on stage, but if not afterwards, because it's such a natural high that you don't want to get yourself into further problems. But it's a great way of meeting people. It's a great way of seeing things in different ways. It's a great way of building your confidence, of building your friendship circle, of seeing other places in the UK.
And seeing people grow as well. You're probably the same. I enjoy seeing people's progress. I think, oh, saw him at the beginning. Oh my God, he's changed. Or even, because I've done it twice round, there was a comedian, Dave Thompson. You familiar?
Yes.
Yeah, and he was good before in the 90s, but this kind of, if you like, new iteration, it's whole other level. So just seeing the potential, one, because I enjoy seeing people grow, and two, because that could happen to me too. That should be happening to all of us, which is great. You're going to Edinburgh this year?
I am. I'm going to be up there, and I'm doing a show all about insecurity, which I'm very, because interestingly, as you say about people growing, there is also, I'm not going to lie, by that same token, that insecurity. I've seen thousands of people that started well beyond me going on to Mock the Week, Club at the Apollo, all of those things, and it's like, that can be a bit of a kick in the gut. But you know what, like a great example of this, I'll never forget, I used to do the stand-ins for Mock the Week, and Robin Morgan, brilliant Welsh comedian, I met him before he ever did comedy, and he was like, oh, I really want to give it a go, and I'd already started, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, man. And then there was just a moment where I was sort of in the studio and he was doing it for the first time. We had a meeting and I was like, oh my God, imagine if all those years ago you'd have realized that you were doing Mock the Week. And now, like, it's well outstripped me, well more successful. So I'm doing a show all about that kind of insecurity and imposter syndrome we all have.
But never say never. Never say never.
Mock the Week's finished now, you know.
Well, there'll be another panel show, I'm sure. Probably online, and probably better than Mock the Week. Maybe you'll pioneer it. There we go.
Well, who knows? Who knows? But it is a funny old world, isn't it?
When's your next gig? Where can people come and see you?
Oh, that's very nice. I'm doing Talk TV tonight, and then tomorrow I'm at Top Secret Comedy Club.
Where is that based?
So that's Drury Lane in Covent Garden.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course.
So,
yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, good luck with everything. And please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for the contribution to mental health as well, because this is the most important.
Thank you, Neil. Really appreciate it.
No, I knew I had to get you on the show. I'll definitely come. I'm up for the second week in Edinburgh.
Please come and say hello.
I will come and see your show, man.
Ah, well, you don't want to do that. But I'm well up for a drink.
No, I do want to do that.
Wait. Thank you so much, mate.
Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show. That's absolutely brilliant. Good luck with everything. Your book, what's it called? And it's available on all platforms.
So I was going to call it, because it's all about anorexia, I wanted to call it The Real Hunger Games. Wasn't allowed that. So it's called Weight Expectations.
You see, this is comedy. I shouldn't have laughed at that, but I did.
Yeah, Weight Expectations. You can buy like WH Smith, Amazon, all of those Waterstones and stuff. There you go.
That's absolutely brilliant. Dave Chawner, thank you so much for being on. Okay. All the best, sir. See you around.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, what a great inspiring show. Whether we're inspiring mental health, or we're inspiring community projects, or just inspiring each other. And the audience figures have been really good today. Thank you so much for tuning in. My little contribution to comedy, by the way, I'm going to go into use the last minute for a shameless plug. A shameless gratuitous plug, and it's not on that one. I'm going to put it on. I do my own tech hopping because I'm that good. Oh, it's not on that one. Where on earth has it gone? Never mind. Biffinbrothers.com. The Biffin, Biffin. Don't Google it. It's rude. Unless you're brave. There it is. Biffinbrothers.com. That's me and my comedy partner putting out some really subversive and moderately inappropriate stuff, but all for the common good of spreading mirth and making people laugh. Dave Chawner, thank you very much indeed. And Paul and Michael and Izzy and Kelly. What a great show. What a really great show. And perhaps you would all like to come to that online fundraiser that I do. If you keep an eye, follow me on Instagram, the Neil Long, or Neil Long DJ on Facebook. And when we do that fundraiser, come along. if you suspend your disbelief, online parties can be an awful lot of fun, and there's no Uber home, and you can get as drunk as you like and smash the place up. I don't even care because it's your place. Russ is here with Screen. I always get the wrong. Screen Queen Chantal on Friday, and Jonathan Baz, theatre critic, and of course the inimitable Phil Dave. And I'll see you on Monday to do the show with Russ, and Wednesday by myself again. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in. All the very best. Party on, lots of love, and take care. Bye.